everyone, welcome to Bikini Design Club. Today, before we go to our table, I just want to tell you 2 or 3 things that I think are important. The first is that I really recommend that you watch the intro tutorial for Verónica 2.0 because this is an upgrade from the original Verónica pattern, and I've made some changes on the curves, on the fitting, and on this tutorial I will also show you different ways of sewing it differently from the first one. But I also want to tell you that you will see 3 different ways of sewing the Verónica bottom in this tutorial. The first one I want to tell you about something is the thong option. This is the thong option. This is a size 2, despite my doll is a size 10. This is a size 2, and this is the thong option. Then I will also show you the tiny option in this color, and the tiny option was sewn exactly the same way as the thong, so you have no visible stitch on the waistline, but you have a stitch, a cover stitch on the legs, and the same I did for this one. The thing that I'm now doing on my tutorials that are different is that I remove some seam allowances from the second fabric, and this enables me to have better fits and no excess fabric ever, so the fit is much better. And then finally we will also sew these ones. These are this is a size 24, my biggest size. This was sewn as a reversible, so again the same method than on our first tutorial for the Verónica bottoms, but this time I removed the seam allowances from the second fabric. So if you want, check the photos, see if you want to do something like this or not, check the results. And that's it. Let's go to our table and sew these 3 options. And this is it. We have here on our table the 3 options that I'm going to show you how to sew today. And I'm using very different characteristics of fabrics, and even the way I'm going to construct them is going to be different. So here we have the tiny version. This is a size 10. I'm using swimwear fabric, and this one is also swimwear fabric, but it's much thinner. It's not lining, but it's almost lining. And for the size 10 tiny, this is it. This is the thong option, and this is a very lightweight fabric. This is Gossamer from Carvico, and it's a lining. I love it, the lining from Carvico. And this is a stretchy, very nice brick color fabric, and I'm gonna sew this on size 2. Then my biggest size today will be size 24. I will do the tiny option, and the interesting here is that the fabrics I'm gonna use, it's this one textured fabric, white. This is from last year and I really love it. I was keeping it, but I'm gonna start using for this summer pieces. And this has, of course, elasticity, but then I have this one, which is also from Carvico, but it's a fabric with less stretch. The percentage of stretch is much smaller than on this one or here. So I know that the girl that is going to be wearing this is a size 22. So since I'm gonna be using this fabric, I'm gonna do a size 24 for her. And I'm gonna sew this one, and now it comes the interesting part. I'm gonna sew this one as a reversible. This one I'm gonna sew as a non-reversible, but I'm gonna still make the waistline with no stitch visible. And the same here, so I'm gonna sew as a non-reversible and no stitch lines on the waist area, but we will have cover stitch on the leg holes and here also. Something I did regarding the cutting of the fabrics, and this is important because it's how I did, and I want you to know because you will notice when we are sewing that this was done. Sorry, my English sometimes, and I'm tired. So this is my back, for instance. This is the thong, as you know. And what I did here is I cutted my front and my 2 backs with the center back seam using the pattern pieces, but then I cutted my front and my back. I removed the seam allowance from the top on my lining, and I cutted my lining. So my lining is smaller on the waist than my main fabric. And if you have seen our Alice 2.0 tutorial, you know that when we do this, we avoid bulkiness and excess fabric on the insides of our pieces with the method that I'm going to use today, of course. So this is what I did for the cutting of the thong option. For the tiny option, I did exactly the same. I removed the seam allowance on the back and on the front, on the waist area, because I'm going to sew using a method that I know I need to reduce the amount of fabric, or you will have excess fabric. And finally, for my tiny, I was still thinking on how to do it, and I already removed the seam allowance also on the top, on the waist. But since I'm going to sew this one as a non-reversible, I will actually do something different. The main side will be this with the spots. So I will not only cut my lining, the seam allowance on the waist, but I will also remove the seam allowance from the leg holes on the front and on the back. So all our second fabric, this one, the white one, will be smaller than our main fabric. I will remove the seam allowances totally on this one, and we will see how this goes. I hope to remove excess fabric using this method, and I hope once this is done as a reversible, you will not have any bulkiness or excess fabric on your second fabric. So let's start sewing. This is quite simple. I have already pinned all the center back seams for with right sides facing together. I have already pinned the center back seams for all my fabrics and linings, and the first thing I'm gonna do is sew over the center back seam of all the fabrics, all the backs, and we'll be back on the table. I now have my back and my back from my tiny, my back from my cheeky, and my back from my thong. As always, since I don't change the threads from my overlock, to make sure I do not see any threads, white threads or white threads here also on this side, what I did was a zigzag here using the threads with the same color of the fabric, and so when it stretches you will not see the white. Now match your front with your back, right sides facing together, align the sides and pin. Do this for the main fabrics and also for the linings, and for the thong option and also for the tiny option. On our reversible option, place right sides facing together but match your front with your front and your back with your back. Pin on the waistline and also the leg lines pinned together. Don't mind that it seems like you have excess fabric, because it will result perfectly once it's reversed to the right sides. So we will get back to the reversible, but for now, for our thong, we are going to insert the lining inside or outside, it's the same. We are gonna insert one inside the other. Of course, they have to be with the wrong sides facing each other, like so. And since we will sew this only the waist area as if it was a reversible, what we actually need to do is place right sides facing together, like so. I'm aligning the center back seam on the top on the waist area, and I'm going to pin with right sides facing together the entire waist area. And we will do this for both options, only for the thong and also for our tiny option. And once we have everything pinned, we will then go to our sewing machine and to the serger, and we are going to apply elastic on the edge of our waist, making sure that you apply the elastic on the sides of your main fabric, not your lining, okay? And we will apply the elastic and we will be back on the table. So let's prepare this one and this one all around the waist, as I told you, with right sides facing together, and pin with your main side facing up on your table. If you do this but your elastic is not 8 millimeters and your stitch on the overlock is on the same sides of your elastic, then this method probably it won't work for you, because what I'm counting here is that my elastic is 0.8 and my seam allowance is also 0.8. So when I remove the seam allowance, I know that the width of my elastic and the folding to the other side will compensate that, and that's why we removed the seam allowance of 0.8 from the lining, from the second fabric, as you know. So you must see for your own sewing machine and for your elastic if this is something you can also do, but probably you can do it, just adjust your sewing machine and find the elastic and you will be able to do it. So now I have here my reversible piece and I have here the two non-reversibles. The reversible, the front, I'm gonna turn it to the right side and I'm gonna insert it inside my back piece. I'm going to align the sides and once the sides are aligned, I will sew on the two sides and also on the gusset area. And I will do this using a zigzag stitch vertically, but I will also, and I always do this, I always come a little bit through the threads of my overlock to secure them, because once I do my vertical with the zigzag, I trim the excess fabric. So you will have the elastic until the end because the seam allowance is here, and you will trim the excess fabric and the excess corner, so the finish is better once this is reversed. And then to reverse this, it's quite simple. On the second fabric side, you open a small hole and you reverse through the hole and then you close the hole. So I will come to this to show you the result in a bit. For the non-reversible, as I told you, I have already pinned the waist on both of them with right sides facing together, and now I will apply the elastic on the side of my main fabric all around the two waistlines, and I'll be back on the table. Now that our waistline is all secure, and as you can see, the elastic goes from one edge to the other, and I even overlap just a little bit, so the tension is distributed all along your waistline. And we have here the same for this one. And now the next step is for us to lay our lining to this side and our seam allowance to the same side of the lining, like so, and we will do a zigzag. This is our understitch, so it's a stitch you will not see, but on the outside, of course, but it will secure the seam allowance to the lining, and we will go and do this all around our waist. In this case, it's exactly the same. We flat our seam to the side of our second fabric, and we will go with the zigzag stitch all around here on the waistline, and then we will be back on the table to finish the leg holes. And we can also go ahead and do something else when we go to the sewing machine to do this. We can also already secure the crotch area. So this is very easy, I bet you already know. Just place right sides facing together of your lining and of your main fabric. In this case, I'm putting my lining And now I want to sew this on top here, and I want to sew this here, right? But I want right sides facing together, so I have to do like so. And now I will align the 4 layers, and we will sew over the 4 layers of fabric. I will do this for this one and also for the thong option. As I was telling you before, to attach the front with the back on the reversible one, sorry, I'm gonna reverse this to the right side as I told you. And now with right sides facing together, I will insert the front inside the back, align the sides, pin and sew. The gussets here and the sides here and the gusset here, I use my straight stitch machine with an elastic stitch, but I use my straight stitch machine. I do not use my serger. This is something you may choose to also do like I'm doing, or maybe you prefer to serge this. I prefer to do with my straight stitch because I think it will be less bulky and the finish will be a bit better, and that's why I do with my regular straight stitch machine. So now I go with this one inside here. Sometimes I like to be very careful with this and to really go here and grab the piece of fabric, because it's so easy to twist the fabric once it's inside, and then if you don't realize it's twisted, when you reverse it to the right side, you will have twisted straps, and you have to remove the seams and make them again. So I usually prefer grabbing inside carefully and doing this carefully. And so now I just align the 2 edges, the top and the lower part of my strap. I pin this in place, and I will do the same on the other side and also on the crotch. If needed, when you go to your sewing machine for the reversible, since we now have fabrics with different sizes, you stretch a little bit the fabric when you sew, okay? So let's finish all this. My back piece is ready. I'm now going to trim the excess fabric on the sides and down here. And something I always do when I open the holes, I secure both sides of the hole with a small straight stitch just to secure the overlock threads. And now when I cut the hole, I know that this is not going to unravel in the future. So that's something I do. I don't know if you want to, but it helps me to make sure that my piece is going to last as much as I want to. I'm not gonna stay here doing this with you watching, so I'm gonna go and do this in a bit. On our thong and tiny options. On our tiny, you can see the zigzag, the understitch done on this side. So when this is on the right sides, you will not see any stitch on the waistline. And now to finish our leg holes, if you place your fabric to the wrong sides, like so, you can easily see that if you align the elastic, because my elastic has 8 millimeters, remember, and it is sticking out a little bit from my threads. When I place it to the right side, there's a bit of elastic sticking, yes, and that when I flatten the fabric, you can see that now my fabric is not too big. The white one is just the amount of fabric I need to close my leg holes, so I will not have excess fabric. I will not have too much fabric on my bottom, which is something I hate. So this is it. You do this on your thong and on your tiny. You sew the leg holes with elastic placed on the side of your lining, and then we will just fold the fabric and we will do a top stitch all around the leg holes, and our tiny and thong will be ready. As you can see here, I've done the same. I've made my understitch, and when you flatten this to the other side, you will then sew the fabrics like so, and you don't have any excess fabric on the insides of your bottom. So you will see how amazing this looks. That's why nowadays I prefer this method for all my bottoms instead of reversibles. But that's just me. So now that our reversible is ready, I'm gonna explain you what do you see here. So you see a little bit of this is the main side, right? So you see a little bit of elastic. This is not elastic, this is the elastic, but you see a little bit of the main fabric sticking out there. This is because once this is on your body, you will only see the main fabric when you are using it on this side, and this is perfect, and you will see this on the body and you will see how good it is. It's better than on my table. And then it's also interesting because once you reverse it to the wrong sides, it will be nice because you will have a little bit of the detail from the other fabric sticking out on this side, but nevertheless you don't have excess fabric. You see, once this is on you, it's hard to show you on the table, but once this is on you, you have no excess fabric on your second fabric because we cut it this shorter than the first one, than the main one. And that's why, and you can see perfectly here, it's easy for me to stretch, you can perfectly see here that you don't have any excess fabric. This is very good because when you have this on, despite you have 2 layers of swimwear fabric, even on your back bottom, you will see that this is not too bulky, and you will love this one. So I hope you enjoyed this reversible method that I showed you with this one. And now I'm gonna finish my leg holes on my non-reversibles, and then I'm gonna show you the results of all of them, hopefully on a real body. So if I have my model size 2, 10 and 22 available for me, I will take some pictures and I will share with you guys. Please, if you like our videos, don't forget to leave your comments. It's not the subscription that I want you to make. I really want to hear from you. I want to hear your opinions. I want to hear your questions. Also join our Facebook group if you want. It's a private Facebook group. It's Bikini Design Club sewing group. I love to hear from you. I take suggestions. Sometimes the new designs are requests from the customers. You can share your experiences on this group, and I really like to hear from you because you're the reason why Bikini Design Club exists. And I will not keep you up. I will fast forward the rest of the sewing here. I will only show you on the machine applying the elastic and a little bit of detail of doing the cover stitch, so you know how to do it if this is your first time. And then I'll finally show you the final result and you will be ready. And that's it for today, guys. If you want to jump to the end, go ahead, use the timestamps and enjoy. Bye!